Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. I am Bryson Carver, as always, and what a weekend of NBA playoff basketball we just had. So the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving experience might end tonight, at least for the second go or the second iteration of it. Last year, it ended in the second round. At least, at the very least, they lost to the team that ended up winning the championship, the Bucks. And this Boston team's legit, but they may get swept tonight. And, of course, I'll lead the show off with that. And I'm going to follow it up, sticking with the Nets, Ben Simmons. That's all I'm going to say, and I'm going to leave it, for the second topic. Also, the Memphis Grizzlies, they just found themselves in a dogfight. John Morant says they want all that smoke, right? They running up the chimney. Did you? So I'll discuss that later, as well as Brandon Ingram playing out of his mind right now against the Phoenix Suns. They just tied the series. The Pelicans just tied the Suns. Devin Booker's injury clearly is making a massive impact on the outcome of that. Now it's basically a best of three, and who knows? Team had the best record in basketball. The team that had the best record in the history of their franchise, the Phoenix Suns, they're pushed to the brink, man. I'll get to that later in the show, as well as, this makes me depressed, man. Another postseason trend for the Philadelphia 76ers that just keeps repeating itself year after year after year. Joel Embiid got hurt. And I'll discuss that at the end of the show. We got a packed show for you guys today. No, I'm not talking about my Warriors. Listen. We couldn't sweep yesterday. It's okay. I predicted a sweep. I was wrong. A gentleman's sweep, right? We want to be respectful of the Denver Nuggets and of the great city of Denver, Colorado. We'll take care of business in Game 5. There's nothing to take away from that. There's a lot to take away from Game 3 of the Eastern Conference first-round series between the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets. Boston has a 3-0 lead. This is a series I had going 7 games. I did pick the Celtics, but the reason I thought it would go 7 is because I felt like the Nets have the two best players in this series in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And to this point, Kyrie's probably been the 4th best player. KD's been about the 6th best player in this series. Of course, we know what Jason Tatum's doing. We know what Kyrie Irving's doing. I'm sorry, what Jaylen Brown's doing. Those guys, it's funny, man. I was at least waiting to board the train of they need to trade Jaylen Brown, keep Jason Tatum. It doesn't work. My bad. I'm going to admit when I was wrong there, and I was wrong. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, one of the best, or at least they're playing like the best or second best duo in the playoffs right now. So shout out to them. And shout out to Ime Udoka for leading this team to a phenomenal second half of the season, but more importantly, in my view, the best defense in basketball. And they, my friends, are stifling the Brooklyn Nets. They are stifling the great Kevin Durant and not the equally great, but the great Kyrie Irving. So Kyrie played bad. We understand that. And I'm going to touch on Kyrie in just a second. But hold on. Let me get to my man, James Scott, Across the Pond Sports Network. I was actually just on their NBA show yesterday, so be sure to go check that out on all podcasting platforms. James says, what about my Jazz? Can we move on and win the series? You can win the series against the Dallas Mavericks without a question. I thought the return of Luka was sort of the dagger. And it's funny, Luka with about 40 seconds left looked like he hit the dagger shot. Again, about 40 seconds left, put the Mavericks up 4. But Donovan Mitchell got the and one. Down the other end, Dwight Powell missed 2 free throws. And then at the end, Donovan Mitchell to my man, not really, but Rudy Gobert. Love Donovan Mitchell. Not a big fan of Rudy, but the lob to Rudy Gobert, and the Jazz got to stop Spencer Dinwiddie missed what would have been the game winner on the final shot. But yes, the Jazz. Listen, I picked the Jazz to win the series because I didn't know what Luka was going to be able to give you physically, considering that calf injury. I will die on the hill the Jazz win the series. I am not in the slightest bit confident in that prediction at all because I do know what the Jazz have, and more specifically, haven't done in the playoffs. But yeah, they can absolutely win the series, right? You're guaranteed a Game 6 at home. The question is, will you be in a position to close out the Mavericks, or will you be in a position where you could get closed out by the Mavericks? That is a fascinating series as well. But yeah, shout out to James Scott, shout out to Rory and the entire Across the Pond crew. They do phenomenal work. Back to the Brooklyn Nets, though. Again, I'll talk about Kyrie Irving in just a second. Kevin Durant. This is a man who I've religiously said on the show is the most gifted scorer in the history of the game of basketball. He's that great. We're talking about a 7-footer who moves and shoots like a guard, who handles the ball like a guard, who could shoot it from 35 feet out, who plays excellent defense. Let's add that to the equation. One season when he was with my Warriors, he finished top 5 in blocks. So he's that dude. He been getting straight punked in this series. I already talked about games 1, game 2. Game 1, he had an off game. That's fine. Any superstar, I don't care how great you are, you could have an off game, at least early in the series. Now, late in the series, different story. But if you have a bad game 1 or game 2, okay, I'm not. Game 2, he was terrible. He scored 27. It was an unbelievably inefficient 27. Got most of that at the free throw line. And game 3, on Saturday night, your team's season is on the line. Yes, that was not an elimination game for Brooklyn, but as we all know, 143 teams in NBA history have been down 3 games to none. All 143 teams have lost. No team's ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in NBA history. None. And these Brooklyn Nets were certainly not going to be the first, should they fall to that 3-0 deficit, which of course they did. But KD, yes, you went 6 for 11 from the field, 2 for 3 from three-point range. An efficient night. My issue is, why the heck you taking 11 shots? Why did you take 1 shot in the fourth quarter? A shot that he made, and that was it. You are Kevin freaking Durant. You told us 3 years ago, your last postseason run with the Warriors. Remember, he played, off. He had 2 off games against the Los Angeles Clippers. And before game 3 of that series, there's a lot of questions. Is KD that dude? Is he really the best player? And Kevin Durant told the media, quote, "I'm Kevin Durant. Y'all know who I am." And then he turned to some other reporters. "Y'all know who I am." And he balled out the rest of the series. Kevin Durant, are you still Kevin Durant? Are you still that dude? Because that was some unacceptable stuff on Saturday night. This is a guy who many, not me, but many have said that's the best player on planet Earth. Like I said, if I had to compose a starting lineup based off of how these guys have played for the Celtics and for the Nets, if I had to do a starting 5 for both teams, Kevin Durant would not make my starting lineup. That's how bad he's been in this series. Inefficient. The Celtics have gotten in his head. He's been timid. And this is why I said KD should have never left the Warriors. Everybody talked about for like those first 2-3 years in Golden State. They said the biggest sin in Kevin Durant's career is he left Oklahoma City, small market town, Russell Westbrook for the big bad Golden State Warriors and turned them into an unbeatable juggernaut. I said, no. Years down the road, 20 years down the road, we are going to look back and think, the heck was Kevin Durant thinking going to the Brooklyn Nets and leaving that well-run franchise called the Golden State Warriors? Take the fact I'm a Warriors fan out of it. He left Steve Kerr, who was voted this year as one of the 15 greatest coaches in the history of the NBA, for Steve Nash, a guy who, up until last season, had never coached a dribble in the NBA. He'd never been an assistant in the NBA. Okay? And then he leaves stable ownership in Golden State, Joe Lacob, Peter Guber, for kind of unstable ownership in Brooklyn. He leaves Bob Myers, who just might be the smartest general manager in basketball, for, I believe it's Sean Marks of the Brooklyn Nets, who's put together a weird, clunky roster in Brooklyn. He leaves a franchise that develops players beautifully, i.e. Jordan Poole, for a franchise that really doesn't. And above all, he leaves the most unselfish superstar, maybe in team sports, in Steph Curry. The guy's coming off the bench right now. How many superstars, superstars, the best players in the world, would come off the bench and not have a temper tantrum or have an attitude about it. Carmelo Anthony laughed. Carmelo Anthony, who was out of his prime in 2018, laughed at the idea of coming off the bench. I'm too good for that. Steph's like, no, whatever gets us a win, I'm good with it. I'm sure it hurt Steph's pride. But Steph's like, it's fine. I'll be in the starting lineup soon. Let's just keep things going in the direction they're going because it's working. Okay, so Kevin Durant leaves that guy for the flakiest superstar in the sport, Kyrie Irving. Earth is flat. Christmas isn't a holiday. Vaccine conspiracy theorist. Skips games randomly. Can't stay healthy. But because he's your buddy, that's who you're going to leave. Steph Curry, 4. The Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant. I did some research the other day. The Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant played 48 playoff games. Okay, so they played 48 games with Kevin Durant on the team. They went 38-10. That is a 79% winning percentage. That's really good. I mean, to lose 10 games in basically 2.5, 3 postseasons with Kevin Durant, that's phenomenal. Okay? Kevin Durant's playoff record without the Warriors. This is since 2015, by the way. These numbers go back to 2015. Kevin Durant's playoff record without the Warriors is 57-46. That is 55% winning percentage. So he's over 500. 55%. The Warriors' playoff record without Kevin Durant, 42-18. 70%. 70%, 55%. It is official, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin Durant needed the Warriors, not the other way around. Don't get me wrong. Kevin Durant's services were greatly appreciated by the Warriors. And certainly as a member of Dub Nation, we definitely appreciated the greatness of Kevin Durant. How could you not? But notice how the Warriors just clicking along fine without KD. And Kevin Durant might get swept in the first round. This was his doing. He wanted to leave. He wanted to leave so he could find playing basketball, I guess, more fun in Brooklyn. I mean, if you say not getting to the conference finals even once is fun, okay, that's you. You could be Tracy McGrady. But the Warriors had the long term in mind, not the here and now. That's what makes them a great franchise. That's what makes them a great drafting team. They let their stars develop. Kevin Durant said, no, I want out. I want to play with my buddy. Okay, you know what? On a personal level, sure, you get that. But again, since 2015, the Warriors' winning percentage without Kevin Durant is 70%. KD's is 55%. Kevin Durant needed the Warriors more than the Warriors need Kevin Durant. And I can hear all the KD defenders right now. Well, Bryson, they went out to the Hamptons to go recruit Kevin Durant. Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iguodala, and the Warriors front office went out to the Hamptons to recruit Kevin Durant. Yeah, why wouldn't you? At that time, he was one of the 3 greatest players on earth. So if Kevin Durant's on the market, you're like, nah, we're good. If you've got the cap space to go get him, he shows some interest. Who wouldn't go recruit him? So no, this isn't a situation where the Warriors just couldn't get over the hump and Kevin Durant brought them over the top. The Warriors had already been over the top in the second season before KD even got there. They broke the record for wins at 73 and came within a minute, 60 seconds, a minute of winning 2 straight NBA championships with their star players not even playing well. Kevin Durant blew a 3-1 lead to them. Did I criticize Kevin Durant's move to go to Golden State? No. Years down the road, we're going to look back and think, it's a good thing KD went to Golden State, or man, how would we look at his legacy? It's a good thing he won them 2 championships there, because without that, what is he? Charles Barkley? Nothing wrong with that. Charles is one of the 50 greatest players ever. He's got an MVP. He went to an NBA Finals. But we don't look at Charles in, like one of his co-hosts, Shaq. We don't look at him in that group. Charles Barkley with the championship is one of the 20 greatest players ever. Without a question. I mean, even Chuck himself said yesterday, he was talking about Kevin Durant. He said, quote, if you ain't driving the bus, don't walk around talk about you a champion. Now, Kevin Durant's a champion. There's nothing, I always say, when somebody's a champion, I always say, you can't take that away from them. When you're a champion, you're a champion. But was Kevin Durant driving the bus? Nah. The Warriors had a better winning percentage when he didn't play than when he did. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant deserved that MVP in 2017. There's no question about it. He was phenomenal in that series. The 2018 finals, I've been one of the few proponents in this sports talk, podcasting, radio, whatever you want to call it, world, that Steph Curry was robbed of the finals MVP back in 2018. Steph Curry was the leading scorer in 3 of the Warriors' 4 finals wins. And even in the game where Steph struggled, he hit the 2 biggest shots of the game. A layup on a cut, and then a behind-the-back, faked out J.R. Smith, and got a wide open 3 and hit it to put the Warriors up 4. So even in the game Steph didn't play well, 2 biggest shots of the game. In that series, Kevin Durant saw 2 double teams. Steph Curry saw almost 30. Ty Lue, the Cavs coach, was telling you who the more valuable player was, who the driver, to use Chuck's quote, who the driver of the bus was. I'll leave it at that. Before I get into Kyrie Irving, a couple comments from my man, John Rivera, Fan Perspective Podcast. He said, where Brooklyn at? Brooklyn has turned into Brooklyn. Because they've been building a lot of houses. Now, we're going to talk about one of them brick builders, Ben Simmons, in just a second. So I promise y'all, you do not want to miss this. And John just says, Kyrie said they don't need a coach, with the shrug emoji. They sure did. Both Kyrie and Kevin Durant said on a podcast going into, I think, the 2020-2021 season, we don't need a coach. Okay, well, you got a guy who, in a sense, really isn't a head coach in Steve Nash. How's that working? Notice the well-coached teams are flourishing in the playoffs. Golden State, Miami, Boston. Like coaching matters, believe it or not. And then the team that doesn't have a good head coach could have their season come to an end without a playoff win. But good point, John. Kyrie and Kevin Durant both said they didn't need a coach. Now, I'll save the funeral for the 2022 Nets season for when it is officially over. It will be tonight. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they survive tonight. I'll go out on a limb and say Brooklyn wins a very close ball game tonight. I say KD gives you 25, Kyrie gives you 30. The bench players show up and they survive. But would I be shocked if the Celtics win? Of course not. They're the better team. I said that going into the series, they're a better team. I just thought Kyrie and KD would be able to get them to a game 7. Kyrie's had one good game in the series. He's been straight garbage since. Kevin Durant hasn't had a good moment in this series. Speaking of Kyrie Irving, this guy is something else. He really is. So Kyrie Irving did not play well in the Nets' loss to the Boston Celtics. He scored only 16 points, shot 6 for 17 for the field, went 0 for 7 from three-point land. And he was on the post game talking about he was talking about the Nets chemistry. The issue with the Nets chemistry this season was, doggone it, they just didn't play together long enough, right? Kyrie and Kevin Durant, they just weren't on the court long enough. So that's why they're having some chemistry issues and why the Celtics are flourishing. Well, Kyrie, you are correct in that. Boston is flourishing because they've been healthy and they've been together all season. And that Kyrie and Kevin Durant haven't been in the court together much. Here's the lack of self-awareness that Kyrie Irving is showing right now. Kyrie, you You know why you guys don't have great chemistry? Part of the reason is because Kevin Durant hurt his MCL and was out a month. Part of it, you made the decision not to get vaccinated. And so you weren't on the court for 2.5 months. That's you, my friend. It ain't Kevin's fault. It's not the front office's fault. It's not the commissioner's fault. This was not something instituted by the commissioners. This is the city of Brooklyn, or New York State, I think, at the time. This is you, my friend. And so what bothers me, the Nets and Lakers, I keep saying I'm not going to talk about the Lakers, but I'm talking about them just to make an analogy. Okay, I hate talking about the Lakers. But where the Lakers and Nets are incredibly similar is that their star players for both teams complain that we just weren't on the court long enough together. Well, in the Lakers' case, that's because Anthony Davis gets hurt, and he always gets hurt, so that shouldn't be a shock to you. And in the case of the Nets, Kyrie Irving is flaky and kind of weird. You knew that going in. This is not a surprise to anybody. So don't act all shocked when, he's skipping games right now. And John just says, I have Brooklyn. Listen, a lot of people have Brooklyn, and I don't know, that's the, I don't know if we have any new comments. For some reason, my little ticker right here where I can see y'all's comments and put them up is giving me issues. So hopefully it'll work by the end of this, show. But it's giving me issues, so hopefully get that straightened out. But that's the thing. Kyrie, you're the biggest reason y'all weren't on the court together. It's you. So when you can't play home games until mid-March, what are we doing here? You can't build chemistry. I mean, listen, do I think Kevin Durant was jumping up and down excited to get vaccinated before the season? Probably not. But he's like, you know what? Put the team first. Got a shot to win a championship. Like I said in the show when this whole vaccine thing started with the NFL, I said a lot of guys talk about their team first. They're the team. It's all about the team until it's time to be about the team. And a lot of guys kind of showed their true colors there. And so Kevin Durant, been hard on him, deservedly so, but he's like, let's do it. Keeps me safe, keeps my teammates safe, hopefully not have to deal with any outbreaks, and give us the best shot possible to win a title. Kyrie Irving decided otherwise. That's the reason for the Nets' chemistry issues. So this should not come to us as a surprise to one Kyrie Irving or anyone else on the Brooklyn Nets. But listen, man, some people, I'm telling you, just a lesson for life, and this is important to me. This is important to everybody. Self-awareness is an so valuable thing. It really, really is. And Kyrie Irving doesn't have it. Russell Westbrook doesn't have it. So there you go. So let me move on. And again, I don't know if anybody has commented in the past few minutes. I just played John's last comment. I'll go and put it up right there, talking about he had Brooklyn. I don't know if anybody else has commented since then. For some reason, again, my thing where I can view y'all's comments is giving me problems. So I'm not real sure what's up with that. But I think what's just fascinating about this whole situation is the fact that both the Lakers and the Nets, the title favorites, Western Conference, Eastern Conference, they both had fatal flaws that have pretty much caused their demise. So, it shouldn't be all that shocking. Now, sticking with those Brooklyn Nets, sticking with the Brooklyn Nets, Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons has been a guy who on this show I've been pretty critical of. And my good buddy Grady Edwards, who's always very, very insightful in the comment section. We talk all the time during games, after games. But Grady texted me after a Philadelphia 76ers loss last postseason. I can't remember if it was game 5 where they blew that big lead or game 7 when they lost the series to Atlanta. After one of those games, Grady texted me and he said, that Ben Simmons is the Jay Cutler of the NBA. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's brilliant. And ever since I've used that in the show, I've given him credit for it because he came up with it, not me. But I've always said that, since Grady told me that, I'm like, oh, they're very similar. Unbelievably talented. I mean, Ben Simmons has made 3 All-Star games. I think it's 3. Yeah, 3 All-Star games. He was up for, some even think he should have won Defensive Player of the Year last year. I wouldn't have been mad. I certainly would have been good with Ben Simmons winning Defensive Player of the Year over frickin' Rudy Gobert. I'd have been fine with Ben Simmons winning that award. Of course, you know me, I'm taking Draymond Green, but if it's Ben Simmons, I'm not complaining. He's a great defensive player. And he has the talents and the capabilities to be a great all-around player. Great rebounder, great court vision, passing. Scorer inside, can't shoot, won't shoot. But the similarities between he and Jay Cutler, they really don't care that much. Jay Cutler, let's be real, did not care about the game of football. He didn't. We all know that if you think Jay Cutler, what's the first thing that comes to your head? 2010 NFC Championship game, taking on their arch rival Green Bay Packers. Jay Cutler is on the training bike. That's the first thing you think of, and you think Super Bowl trip on the line. And you didn't go out there and sell out for us, for the Chicago Bears. You left poor Caleb Haney out there trying to get the Chicago Bears to a Super Bowl. Ben Simmons. If I think Ben Simmons, the first thing that comes to my head is the wide open layup against Trae Young, little 6'1" Trae Young, if he's even that tall, and passing it up to Matisse Thybulle, who got fouled and went 1 for 2 from the free throw line. That's what I think of with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons was, for, I would say, the last 2 weeks, I've talked about it extensively on my show, the last 2 weeks was slated to play game 4. Right? The Nets have said, we're getting him ready. He's getting ready. He's taking shots. Ben Simmons even had the gall at practice to tell, I forgot which one it was, which ESPN report it was. I'm blanking on it right now. But it was an ESPN reporter covering the Nets, and he was recording practice. Ben Simmons went up for a dunk, and he told the guy, you got that right? Like, pointing at the camera, you got that right? It's like, bro, you're 6'10", 6'11". I would hope you can dunk. So they've been hyping him up. He's going to be back game 4. Report from Adrian Wojnarowski. Ben Simmons came in yesterday after the Nets game 3 loss to go down 3-0. Ben Simmons told the Brooklyn Nets training staff, back's not feeling good. So what would have happened between the Nets' last practice and Sunday, where Ben Simmons would have had back problems? The reports were he was getting better. The reports were game 4, guaranteed. Steve Nash, game 4. Brooklyn Nets, game 4. Ben Simmons has the energy in practice, hyping himself up to the media. Game 4 on Monday, tonight. And then at the last second, he pulls out. Before I go all in on this, I'm going to let Shaquille O'Neal, last night inside the NBA, sum it up for me before I get into it.
In the hood, we call this a punk move. You know, when things are going good, yeah, I'm going to play in game 4. Chuck said it. You can play on Saturday, you can play on Monday. Now that they lost, my back hurt. Well, if your back hurt, get some icy hot, I'll send it to you. We call this a punk move. Listen, if you're not ready to play, you would get more respect from the people if you just say, I'm not ready to play, and don't say nothing else. Don't be shooting and saying, I'm coming back, I'm going to do this. That was a punk move. Reggie's absolutely right. If you're not going to play, don't say you're going to play. I think you should play. You know,
let me say this. First of all, I knew.
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
I think you should step up to the challenge and try to help your team win. But nope, He went, the punk move, right? Oh, I'm not going to play, my back hurt, but we all know what that is. Ballers know what that is. Everybody else could be, oh, he's not ready, but us guys that live this life, we know exactly what you're doing, buddy.
So Shaq talking about Reggie, he was referring to a tweet by Reggie Miller. I'll go and put it up right now. Reggie Miller also summed it up. Reggie Miller, the great Reggie Miller, tweeted, "Come on, man. Out for game 4 when it was rumored you were going to make your debut? This dude has 0 competitive fire." He's got the fire emoji. "As small a chance as the Nets have to come back in the series, you still have KD and Kyrie. All you need to do is win one game and take it from there. Hashtag man up." Charles Barkley later in that segment, we don't have the soundbite, but Charles Barkley later in that segment talked about Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes, who just was awarded Rookie of the Year, star forward for the Toronto Raptors. Toronto was down 3-0 at home against the superior team, the Philadelphia 76ers. Scotty Barnes has a badly injured ankle that he hurt in game 1. He played in game 4. He re-injured his ankle. He finished the basketball game. He only gave you 6 points, 11 rebounds. Didn't make a huge impact. But what Scotty Barnes was telling you, he said, "I'm going to play 26 minutes. I'm going to give this team everything I have because I don't want to get swept. I want to see another game." That kid's going to go on to do great things in this league. We know his talent, but now we also know his heart. Ben Simmons does not care about the game of basketball. It is simple as that. He does not care about the game of basketball because we've been hearing for weeks. Game 4, first round, Ben Simmons is back. Ben Simmons seems very confident. Game 4, I'm coming back. And at the last second, when the going gets tough, "I'm good, bro." Listen, I've been all over Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in this show today. How do you think those guys feel about this? They're like, hold on a minute. Our season's on the line. We got a game 4 at home to avoid getting swept. And you're just going to quit on us like that? How do you think those two guys are going to be looking at Ben Simmons? He's going to be he's going to be dressed for the Met Gala on the bench once again. Right? He's always this fashion game, man. I'm telling you, it's A+. How those guys are going to be looking at Ben Simmons like, time out. We're busting our you-know-whats to try and not get swept and extend this series and not get embarrassed. And you're out here sitting on the bench, not giving us anything? Really? That's what we about now? This is why Joel Embiid got tired of him. This is why Doc Rivers got tired of him. This is why the entire organization of the Philadelphia 76ers got tired of him. And John points out Zion Williamson. He said, "Did somebody say Zion?" And I agree with you there, John. I'm not sure Zion's hurt. Now, Zion, it's not just the injury thing, but it's the issue with him is the dude is going to eat himself out of a league. He takes horrendous care of his body. Awful. And I'm going to kind of touch on Zion when I get to the Pelicans later in the show, so I'll save that for later. But this is who Ben Simmons is. Right? Past behavior predicts future behavior. This did not come to a surprise. If there was any player in the NBA that you said, yeah, a guy is injured, his team season is about to be on the line, at the last second, I'm good. Really? Ben Simmons would be would have been at the top of my list. Number 2 would have been Zion. Number 3 would have been Kyrie Irving. But this is who he is. He does not care about the game of basketball. He is a horrendous teammate. And this is why I said Philadelphia won this trade a couple months ago. Has James Harden been great? No, he's actually been kind of bad in these last few games in the playoffs. Certainly his shooting percentage has been awful. And today, the Nets look like idiots. The Sixers look like geniuses. And James Harden isn't even playing well. But they traded a guy who wasn't even going to play a minute this season. So, for all the Ben Simmons excuse makers, you can stay on this train. But get used to this. We're going to be seeing a lot more of this Ben Simmons nonsense. Skipping games, refusing to shoot the basketball. I mean, last year, remember Doc Rivers would have to take Ben Simmons out of the last 2 minutes of close games to put in poor Shake Milton into the game. Shake Milton, nice player. He's a nice bench player. But this shouldn't even be a question. The guy don't care. We know his indifferent way of going about things. Think about, this is my last point. Think about what might have been one of, if not the most heartbreaking loss in Philadelphia 76ers history. Certainly in recent history. Game 7, second round, 2019, Toronto Raptors. Kawhi Leonard hits that iconic shot, bounces a million times, and goes in at the buzzer to win the series. And heartbreakingly, of course, you lost with a buzzer-beating shot in the 76ers season, a season where they had championship hopes and aspirations. Like that starting, go back and look at that starting five. That was a legit starting five. Yeah, Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid. That's good enough to win you a championship. Kawhi Leonard dashed those hopes. Ben Simmons walked off you can see Ben Simmons under the basket when that shot goes in. His expression doesn't change. His body language doesn't change. And he walks off the court. All right. Joel Embiid, probably 10 seconds after the shot went in and pandemonium ensued in Toronto, was crying his eyes out. Everybody made all the memes making fun of Joel Embiid walking the locker room, right? Where he's got the still shot of him crying, about to walk into the Sixers locker room. The cameras for TNT caught that, and everybody made their memes. And I said, that guy cares. That guy is genuinely devastated that his team season was over. His co-star could care less. That is who Ben Simmons is in a nutshell compared to an actual superstar, his old teammate, Joel Embiid. So this doesn't surprise me in the slightest. What's going on right now? As Shaq called it, it's a punk move. It's a punk move. You just pulling out of a game at the last second, selling out your team. But why should we be surprised? I mean, I don't know why with the Ben Simmons drama, with Kyrie missing games, with the vax, Kevin Durant getting injured more frequently than he used to. The roster isn't deep. They don't have a good coach. They don't play defense. And yet people thought that they could, even throughout the season, going into the season, okay, I get it. But we're talking March, they're fighting just to be in the play-in tournament. And we're yeah, they can win the championship. What? Yeah. But hopefully, what the Boston Celtics are showing us, what the Milwaukee Bucks showed us last year, is yes, you need a superstar to win a championship. You have to have a superstar to win an NBA championship. The last team that didn't was the 2004 Detroit Pistons. And great as I think Chauncey Billups was, he wasn't a superstar. That's the last team to win an NBA championship that did not have one superstar player. Team chemistry matters. Coaching matters. Depth matters. Fit matters. This is why the Lakers didn't even make the play-in tournament. This is why the Nets could get swept tonight. That all matters. So this is why many in the media have said if the Nets won the championship this season, it would be the worst thing for the game of basketball. Because it would basically mean all the things that make the game great don't matter. Just because you got the two most talented players. Moving on to the Western Conference. Western Conference is something, man. Listen, I've said throughout the season, well, maybe not throughout the season, probably starting in the new year, back in January. I've been sort of the mindset that the East is better than the West because I think the Eastern Conference has more contenders than the West. I've said all year. I got on the Dallas train for a little bit in like March. I backed off it with Luka's injury and the fact that they're in a dogfight with the Jazz right now. 2 contenders in the Western Conference: Phoenix Suns, Golden State Warriors. My Golden State Warriors. Out East, Milwaukee, Boston, Miami. A lot of people like Philly. I'm not as high on the 76ers, and I'll discuss them later on the show. But I think we can all agree the East has more contenders than the West. I don't look at Memphis as a contender. I said that going into the playoffs, and certainly after the way that this postseason run has gone for them, I'm sticking by that. Now, does that mean they will not be a contender in years to come? Of course not. They are going to be in the, if you told me, if you were from the year 2027 and you said the Memphis Grizzlies won a championship, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. If you told me they won it in 2022, I'd have been like, wow, that came out of left field. Because the thing about the Memphis Grizzlies is that thus far, their best player, and he's a nice player, I like him a lot, but their best player has been Desmond Bane. Now, Desmond Bane is a knockdown three-point shooter. Desmond Bane can play the game of basketball at a very high level. Ja Morant's been awful. We talked about on Friday's show when Memphis made that big comeback from down 26 points, came back, won the game by 9, winning that huge run in the fourth quarter. I think it was like a 37-12 run, something crazy to win the game. And I made a point of saying the show, they made that big run without Ja Morant even playing well. Saturday, game 4, they played the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the game that came down to the wire. And we had yet another idiot run out on the floor of a Timberwolves game. This got to stop becoming a trend. People run on the floor in Timberwolves games, but that's a whole different conversation. But that game was on a silver platter, especially in the last 2-3 minutes. Back and forth between the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. Ja Morant, 11 points, 4 for 13 for the field, 0 for 2 from three-point range. The thing with the Grizzlies is, and this is why I said going in that they weren't a contender this year. They got a very bright future, but not this year. They're too dang young. Their best player, Ja Morant, love him. This is his second playoff run. Right? It took LeBron a number of playoff runs to finally get him a championship. Giannis, a number of playoff runs. Steph. Kawhi was already with a great team, so that's a little bit different. But the best players in this game, Michael Jordan did not win an NBA championship until, I think, year 7. The greatest player ever. It took him 7 years. Now, some guys shorter, some guys, a little longer than Jordan. It took Dirk a long time to finally get him one in 2011. But there is a process to how this works. Memphis is deep. But again, they're young. And they're playing an equally young team. And this is a dogfight series. This feels like a go either way at this point. So we know it's a best 2 out of 3. The Grizzlies have home court. Right, they got game 5, which is tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern. Memphis is right now a 6-point favorite according to Vegas. And then game 6 will be in Minnesota on Friday. One of these two team seasons going to be on the line. But the Grizzlies in this series, it's not, Ja Morant said, we want all that smoke, right? We hear the term, we want all that smoke, but Ja Morant took it a step further. He said, we running down the chimney. Well, this isn't even the most, smoke-filled chimneys in the Western Conference. It's the Timberwolves. Good team. Minnesota's had an excellent season. If you told me the Timberwolves would be in a dogfight in the first round in a playoff series, I'd be like, man, respect to the Timberwolves. That's didn't see that coming. But you're telling me that if they're struggling with Minnesota, then in the next round, if Memphis wins this, that they can beat Golden State? That if they have the second round matchup, that they could beat the Suns? or Dallas or even the Jazz. Even the Jazz are playing better basketball than the Grizzlies right now. So my whole issue with Memphis was always youth. Ja's phenomenal. His game speaks for itself. I worry about how when he goes up for these high-flying, ridiculous athletic plays, he comes down hard on the court, and he's had some injury issues already. And he's talked recently about, his knees bothering him. I'm like, dude, it's the first round. Like, that's a little concerning long-term for Ja Morant. And for the rest of the Grizzlies, Dylan Brooks. What's going on, man? You got other guys down the roster. Jaren Jackson has had virtually no impact, certainly in Game 4. The defense of the floor, Karl-Anthony Towns, I'll give props to him, right? I was all over Cat on Friday. He played big time on Saturday night. Karl-Anthony Towns dropped 33 points and grabbed 14 boards. That's the Karl-Anthony Towns that the Timberwolves need. And that's the Karl-Anthony Towns that we know he's capable of being. But this is, look, I remember keep going back to inside the NBA, but this is why, Charles and Shaq picked the Timberwolves to upset in this series. Is because if Memphis is struggling with an equally young team, and I mean struggling, the veteran teams, that's where it's going to end for them this season. So I still like Memphis to win this series. I had it going 6 games. So my gut tells me the Timberwolves win these next 2, win the series, and take on my Warriors. And I know my second round predictions won't come until, later this week. But I'm just going to go and tell y'all. Dubs in 5. I don't think they get 2 games off the Warriors. I really don't. The Splash Triplets doing what they do. Draymond being a defensive menace. Andrew Wiggins played great defense, knocking down big shots. The depth. I mean, what's Memphis got? Home court advantage? Okay, the Warriors can steal that just with a road win. So that's not going to be a huge impact. So this is why I wasn't horribly high on the Timberwolves from the start. I'm sorry, on the Grizzlies from the start. I feel like people were putting the expectations a little too high. Folks, we've seen 2 seeds that are good, but they're built for the regular season. Right? And this is how most young teams are. They play their butts off, right? A lot of times, even if the star player is out, now they don't go 20-5, but which the Grizzlies did without Ja Morant, but they tend to play well, right? Because they play hard. And in the regular season, playing hard wins you a lot of basketball games. Because all the veteran teams, your Golden States, your Milwaukee's, your Philadelphia's, they got veterans. They're going to rest guys certain nights. And they know the postseason is what matters above all. Whereas the Grizzlies, seeding matters for them. It's not a shot, but it's their reality. But what ends up happening is you run into a team that's more well-equipped for the postseason. And as we all know, regular season, postseason, it looks like 2 different games. And I think the Timberwolves, I'm sorry, I keep saying the Timberwolves. I think the Grizzlies, even though they were in the playoffs last year and lost to Utah, this is the first time, probably in Grizzlies history, that they are expected to do something in the playoffs. I know they had the grindhouse with Conley and Gasol and Tony Allen and Zebo, Zach Randolph. No one ever really thought like that team can win a championship. That we thought they could win a playoff series, even 2, which they did in 2012. But we never had those expectations. I feel like people jumped on the Grizzlies bandwagon a little too early. And they're struggling in the first round. It's no disrespect to the Timberwolves. They're, again, they're equally young team. Anthony Edwards, how about another, Ben Simmons example? Anthony Edwards suffered what looks like a pretty bad injury. Came back in the game and led the team didn't lead the team in scoring, but he scored 24. But, Ben Simmons can't go out there and play, 15 minutes. But, yeah. Moving on, sticking in the Western Conference to another series that it has a 2-2 tie going into Game 5. Phoenix Suns, New Orleans Pelicans. Man, oh man. I will quote Mike Tyson again. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And for the Phoenix Suns, they have been punched in the mouth in two different ways. Number one, the Devin Booker injury. And we see the impact that's making. This is a guy that gives you 30 a night that's gone for the rest of the series. And the other way, Brandon Ingram's playing possessed right now. He is playing phenomenal basketball. He played great in the Pelicans play-in win over the Los Angeles Clippers on the road. They had to come back in the fourth quarter, win that game. Brandon Ingram, along with C.J. McCollum, both played well, won that game. And Brandon Ingram has scored 30 points in the last 3 games. He had that 37-piece, a near triple-double in Game 2 when they beat the Suns. He played well in Game 3. And then last night, in a game that the Pelicans absolutely had to win, because you go down 3-1, outside of, I think it's 13, 14, 15 teams in NBA history that have come back from 3-1, it's over. And Brandon Ingram last night against the Phoenix Suns dropped 30 on 11 for 23 from the field. Wasn't great from three-point range, 1 for 5, but hit all the big shots. Anytime that Phoenix tried to make a run, looked like they maybe would get back in the game, Brandon Ingram would show up and snuff it out. And, Brandon Ingram is further reiterating my claim and my theory that while the Los Angeles Lakers are a good drafting team, they suck at developing stars. As I forgot who it was. I wish I could think of the media personality that said this. I'm blanking on whoever it was. The last star player, even superstar player that the Lakers developed was Kobe. Every other star player they've had since then, they picked up out of free agency. Now, I've got no problem with that. If LeBron James on the market, you go and get LeBron James. Anthony Davis, sure. Pau Gasol before that, and we could talk about different other guys. Like the Lakers have a good scouting department, clearly, because they spot talent. D'Angelo Russell's doing good things. He can be up and down at times, but D'Angelo Russell's doing good things for the Timberwolves, and Brandon Ingram is playing like a man possessed right now. Like he is really coming into his own as one of the better scorers in the NBA. But the Lakers bailed on him. They bailed on D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle and Alex Caruso and Kyle Kuzma. All guys they drafted. I'm not sure if Caruso was drafted, but all young players that they brought into the organization, they got impatient and they let him walk. It's like, dude, Brandon Ingram's like, 24, 25 years old? He's not even in his prime yet. This is a guy that all of the draft experts going to that 2016 draft said he's the next Kevin Durant. Length, quickness, the handle. Brandon Ingram has put on a lot more weight. Good weight, not Zion weight, good weight. Since that draft, put on some muscle, developed his game better and better and better. Everybody talked about how big of a gym rat he was back at Duke. And you're seeing that. By the way, something else. What he's getting now with the Pelicans, and I never thought I'd say this, with the Pelicans, that he couldn't get with the Lakers, excellent coaching. Willie Green, I cannot stress enough how phenomenal of a job that this man has done. The Pelicans had the worst record in basketball through the first month of the season. Today, they're 2 wins away from dethroning the team that got to the NBA Finals last year. Huh? Now, I hear a lot of people saying, I'll get to Phoenix in just a second, but I hear a lot of people saying about the Pelicans, man, if they could just get Zion back. And my take on it is this. Yes, you get Zion Williamson on the court. Yeah, he can give you 30 a night on 60% shooting. I think he led the NBA in shooting percentage last year because it's a bunch of dunks and power drives to the basket. Not a great perimeter player, in terms of his shooting ability, but he's a great, slasher, great driver to the basket in this league. But notice Brandon Ingram in 2020, when Zion Williamson barely played before the pandemic shut the season down for months, Brandon Ingram was an all-star for the first time. And then last year, Zion Williamson's only healthy season, Brandon Ingram took not a nosedive, but he declined in production. I don't think Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram fit together because Brandon Ingram is a scorer who does need the ball in his hands. And if Brandon Ingram has the ball in your hands and Zion Williamson is relegated to simply a perimeter player, you don't get the same production out of both guys that you do from them individually when one of them is off the court. So I think in terms of fit, Ingram, Zion, they don't work together just because of their styles of play. And so if I'm the Pelicans and I'm seeing what Brandon Ingram is doing in this postseason, he's got the veteran leadership of CJ McCollum. We know, I already mentioned Willie Green, the coach. He's got a good group of young players. That Jose Alvarado kid who plays great defense on Chris Paul. Herb Jones, who's an excellent player. Got Jackson Hayes, who's a little bit of a dirty player, but he's good. And Valanciunas and those guys. You got a nice little core. Let's just say the Pelicans lose these next 2 games, which is entirely possible. You got something to build off of here. And you did it all without Zion. So, now while Zion's stock will probably never be this low, maybe, I'm buying into Brandon Ingram. Because to me, because Zion and Ingram don't fit together, the Pelicans have to make a tough decision. David Griffin has to make a tough decision between Brandon Ingram or Zion. And I'm going with Brandon Ingram. And I don't think this is recency bias. Because this guy gets you to the playoffs and is balling in the playoffs. And is a gym rat and does take care of his body. And has shown some decent leadership skills. I think CJ McCollum has kind of gotten him to break out of his shell a bit. Zion, this is the same Zion Williamson who was former teammate JJ Redick, one of the most respected former NBA veterans that there is, who played with the Pelicans. JJ Redick, I played the soundbite in the show a month ago. JJ Redick said, yeah, he's a detached teammate. Remember CJ McCollum said, yeah, Zion didn't call me for the first 2 weeks I was traded here. He didn't even call you? I'm not saying Brandon Ingram is Kevin Garnett leadership, but he's shown some better leadership intangibles. So you would not be bailing on Zion Williamson because of talent, because that is not an issue in the slightest. But like Ben Simmons, does he have a desire to be great? Does he have a desire to improve on his weaknesses? Does he have a desire to be better on the defensive end of the floor? Like Brandon Ingram, that's something else. Brandon Ingram defends, man. He does. Zion doesn't. Zion was one of the worst. Look at the numbers. He was one of the worst defensive players in the league last year. So as great as he is, as much as he can give you 27 points a night, he and Ingram don't fit together. So if I'm the Pelicans, I'm going with Brandon Ingram long-term. Absolutely. You're talking about a guy, I think, what is he, 24, 25 years old? I mean, the talent that this guy brings to the table, 24 years old, won't be 25 until the start of next season. He's not even in his prime yet. This is a guy you can build around. This is a guy who you can try and build a culture around that, who knows, maybe puts you in contention at some point in the future. He's shown the ability that the playoffs are not too big for him. Zion couldn't even get this team to the playoffs last year as the best player with Brandon Ingram. That's kind of my take on it. I don't think that this is something that the Pelicans can put off to next season. I think you want to capitalize on the momentum you have right now. Move Zion, whether you get picks in return, whether you get some nice players that fit what you're trying to do. I mean, how about this suggestion? The Sacramento Kings. How about you make a deal with them to get a guy like De'Aaron Fox? so that CJ McCollum can go back to his natural position as a two guard instead of the point guard. So you have a true point guard, De'Aaron Fox, who doesn't need the basketball to be effective. CJ McCollum goes back to his natural position, and Brandon Ingram is your star. By the way, you've got your two bigs in Jackson Hayes and Jonas Valanciunas. I'm just suggesting. I think it works, and we know Sacramento. The Patriots in the NFL were great at this for years, doing business with bad franchises. Like, notice all the trades the Patriots made were with the Lions and with the Browns. They were never in business with the Steelers or the New York Giants. Why is that? Well, those teams are well run, so you're not going to fool them. You can fool the Lions and you can fool the Browns. You can fool the Sacramento Kings. And those idiots gave up on Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield. I mean, what are you doing? It's a poorly run franchise. It's the reason that a lot of people suggested that Ben Simmons get traded there. So if I'm the Pelicans, I call the Kings today and offer Zion Williamson for De'Aaron Fox. I really do. I think that works. And you want to talk about capitalizing on momentum that you got from the end of this season and bring it into next season. I'm telling you, this could be big. So again, I'm still going to take the Phoenix Suns to win this series. But this was kind of the Suns' worst nightmare. For real. This was their worst nightmare in the first round. Devin Booker gets hurt. You're in a hard-fought series in the first round, which, I picked the Pelicans to sweep. I'm sorry, I picked the Suns to sweep whoever they played in the first round, depending on how the play-in tournament shook out, because of how well they were playing. But Devin Booker goes down, and we know hamstring injuries are no joke. Those things linger, man. And Devin Booker has a history of having hamstring issues. So they're definitely going to linger with him. And so now you're like, can we just survive New Orleans? And the second round will either have to play Donovan Mitchell or Luka. Oh, man. Phoenix is in trouble, man. When Devin Booker went down and the Pelicans won game 2, I was like, I'm going to take Phoenix to still win out. Because I thought, simply put, they were just the better basketball team. And as good of a coach as Willie Green is, I would still take Monty Williams. Well, now, they're not, what I envision the Suns doing, maybe not to this extent, but is kind of what the Bucks are doing right now to the Bulls without Chris Middleton. Now, I didn't think, the Bulls won by 30 in game 3 and by 24 in game 4 yesterday. Like, I didn't see Phoenix doing that without Devin Booker, but winning those 2 games, the depth, the coaching, the leadership of Chris Paul, I kind of saw them winning those 2 games, but I'll tell you what, man, credit to the New Orleans Pelicans. Big credit to them. Once again, the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics, I believe, tip off in minutes. So I'll try and do this last topic and get the heck out of the way to go watch this game. Last topic of the day, speaking of an Eastern Conference team that had championship hopes coming into the season, and the Celtics and Nets game has officially started. We're about a minute into the game, so I'm going to be kind of looking up and down, back and forth. But the Philadelphia 76ers. And this sucks for them. I'm not exactly a Philadelphia sports fan, given how much I can't stand their fan base. But I do have somewhat sympathy, at the very least, for the organization. Because number one, you got the Ben Simmons drama. That speaks for itself. But you got a superstar in Joel Embiid who has taken better care of his body the last 2 seasons, is in shape, has been better in the playoffs. He had a game winner just a few days ago in game 3 against the Toronto Raptors. And once again, come second round, Embiid goes down. And this, folks, is why I said, even after the Harden trade, which I said was the Sixers won that trade over the Nets, I said, look, the 2 things that would, or the 3 things that would derail the Sixers season is, 1, Doc Rivers. We know what he is in the playoffs. Only coach ever to blow 3-3-1 leads. James Harden, we know what he is in the playoffs. I don't even have enough time to go over his extensive history. And Joel Embiid, I don't trust him to stay healthy all the way through. 2019, he had the issue. He was sick. He had upper respiratory, wasn't feeling good, and it limited him throughout the rest of that series against the Raptors. Last year, knee injury. I think he had like torn, I don't know, was it a torn plantar fascia? It was something like that. It was a knee issue that really limited him in that Atlanta series and hampered him from being what he should have been, and that's the best player in that series. That ended up being Trae Young. And now this year, finger issue. A finger issue that reportedly he's going to have surgery on once the 76ers season comes to an end, whenever that is. And we saw in Game 4, when they were going for the sweep, against the Raptors, that finger problem, that finger injury, clearly limited him because he didn't play horribly well. I think gave you 21 points. Yeah, gave you 21 points on 7 for 16 for the field, only 8 rebounds. Like Joel Embiid, a guy who might be the MVP, should get you more than 8 rebounds. He's not 100%. So this goes to, and Harden's not good in the playoffs, and Doc Rivers is going to find some way to screw it up. So it's kind of coming together once again why I did not think that the Sixers would be a true contender compared to the Bucks, compared to the Celtics or the Miami Heat. Injuries, unreliable second star, unreliable head coach. And unfortunately, and I love Joel Embiid. I think he's the best big in basketball. Absolutely, 7 days out of the week, 24 hours a day, take him over Nikola Jokic is the best big in basketball. But this has been his bugaboo. He struggles to stay healthy. And it's unfortunate, man. I mean, it really is. It just hampers them to be a contender. John says, definitely it all depends on Embiid's health. Got a good coach and players, but not going to win it all without the big man. No, absolutely not. And I just, I wish the guy could stay healthy, because it isn't a situation like Anthony Davis where he's not taking care of his body, or like Zion Williamson. It's just, I don't know if it's because he dealt with injuries coming into the league when he was drafted in 2014. It's just year after year after year, his body is just brittle. Like it just is. Kind of like Kevin Durant. But at least Kevin Durant's like 33, 34. Like he's still in his prime, but he's getting up there in age now. Embiid's not even 30 yet. I don't think. I think he's like 29 or something. Like this should be like the prime years of his career. And when he's on the court and healthy, you can tell, oh, this is a great player in the middle of his prime. Look out. But it's just not, it's not materializing the way that Embiid thought, I'm sure, and that the 76ers thought that it would. All right. What a show. What a weekend we just had. That is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving It Up Live on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. Be sure to catch the Carving It Up podcast as well on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. And also on those podcasting platforms is now available episode 3 of the Carving It Up U.S. Presidents Edition. Be sure to go check it out. As well as the first 2 episodes, myself, my co-host Isaac Lawson will be covering all 46 of the U.S. presidents and then ranking them at the end. It's a little bit of a different twist on this Carving It Up Live podcast. So be sure to check that out. And check Carving It Up out on all social media platforms. Instagram at Carving It Up Podcast. Twitter at Carving It Up Pod. Just P-O-D, Pod. And then on Facebook, search Bryson Carver, and the Carving Up logo should be there right when you search it on your little search bar. Have a great week, everybody. See you on Thursday. Continue to stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Man, Ben Simmons, man. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.